beginning, stock cars outran the police to deliver the hooch to our ancestors. So sweet. Are you ready for a trip down victory lane, where Richard Petty's winnings were insane and Dale Earnhardt put everyone to shame? Canadian Junior Handley is in the Hall of Fame. Live from Haldeman County, it's time for the Driver in Deep podcast. Are you ready?
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us for episode 40 of Driver in Deep, brought to you by wingnutsports.com. My name is Mark McSporran, and I'm here again with Canadian Motorsports Hall of Famer Alex Nagy. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook just by searching for Wingnut Sports. Alex and I would love it if you checked us out and give us the ultimate compliment by hitting subscribe. If you want to check us out personally, you can do that at Twitter at nags_Alex and at WNSMark. Hey Alex, how's it going in your neck of the woods? Are you enjoying 2022 so far?
Yeah, pretty good. All good so far. Just hunkering down today in front of a fire watching it snow.
Oh, that's awesome. Did you use a quick wick fire starter to start that fire?
Buddy, of course I did. Is there any other way?
No, not at all. Not as far as I'm concerned anyway. Hey, Alex, I have a question for you. You were pretty excited to have your brother-in-law on the podcast today. So much so that I really thought you were going to touch yourself. Did you not see him enough over the holidays or what?
Man. So maybe I wasn't that clear. Let me make myself clear, because obviously you're clueless. We have NASCAR legend Kenny Wallace on the podcast today. Not my brother-in-law, Kenny Wallace from Mount Pleasant, Ontario, you dumbass.
Well, you know what? This is a pretty big deal then. You know, and by all means, feel free to go ahead and touch yourself. Just do me a favor. Just keep seated if you don't mind.
Listen, I think everybody's safe.
Well, I hope so.
Heck, normally I beat you up a little bit about your hockey team and, of course, your disc golf game or lack thereof. And sometimes we joke around about the colorblind flagger giver. And, of course, our buddy Gooder that has been relentless about, when's the next episode? The next episode?
Yeah, I really think we need to get a restraining order on that guy.
Yeah, he's got it bad. Anyway, I'm pretty sure the real Kenny Wallace is going to give us a lot of great content today. So how about we get right at it?
Yeah, let's go. Our guest today is none other than NASCAR legend Kenny Wallace. If you haven't checked out Kenny's social media, you're missing out. He's as real as they get, and you can find him on his website at KennyWallaceRaces.com, on Twitter at Kenny_Wallace, and even on Cameo at Kenny Wallace 36. One place you should definitely go and check out, though, is his YouTube page. Just search for Kenny Wallace. Hey, Kenny, it's Mark here. It's a pleasure to meet you, and welcome to Driver in Deep. We know that you have a lot going on, and Alex and I really appreciate you taking the time to join us today.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it, and I miss all of you way up there in Canada. They, for a couple of years, they wouldn't let me cross that border, and one of these days I'm going to get back there because I sure do miss you all.
Hey, Herm, Alex here. And as Mark mentioned, hey, we'll get you back up here. Don't you worry about that. As Mark mentioned, we appreciate you being on. Let's get this out of the way. For those that don't know, you've got the nickname Herman, however you want to say it. Everybody knows the nickname, but how did it ever get started?
Yeah, it started out as Herman the German. It was actually a real German man. His name was Bob Miller. He stood about bigger than life when I was a kid. And Bob Miller owned a car lot, where they sold used cars. And my dad always took me down there. And I would always get in every single one of his used cars. And I would pretend that I was in the Daytona 500. and Bob said, Herman the German, he's wearing the steering box out in every one of those used cars on my parking lot. So it started out as Herman the German, then it became Herman and the Herminator, and everybody's just had a lot of fun with it.
That's great. Hey, Kenny, I mentioned that you have a lot going on right now, and besides the great Kenny Wallace racing stories that so many of us have heard and watched, On your YouTube channel, you've been very candid about your family situation with regards to COVID. First, I want to thank you for that. You know, I wish more public figures would share the good and the bad stories of their experience with COVID. But I think making it real like you have done makes us feel just a little bit better about it ourselves. Have you had much reaction to these videos?
Oh, yes. You know, thousands and thousands. I mean, 50, 60,000 views or more.
Wow.
So here's how that all came about. You know, I mean this in a fun way. I have a little bit of redneck in me. Redneck means we don't abide by the rules. We do what we want to do. And so I've been racing that dirt car of mine, 82 times this year. This was the first year that I kept count. I involved all the fans, because everybody would say, "Where'd you race last year?" So I kept the count of where we were. Well, all summer long, I'm racing like nothing's wrong. Well, fast forward, we got COVID. All of a sudden, I just announced to everybody, "Hey, me and my wife and her mother, we have COVID." And one by one, it was like ding, 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 ding. My phone started going nuts. All these great race car drivers. And I want to tell you their names. They're some of the greatest of all time. They all called me. They said, "Kenny, we got COVID in August. Oh my God, we were jumped for a week, and it's taken us 2 months to get our energy back." And about on the 60th person, 60th race car driver, a media person, I said, "This is nuts." Because here I've been a redneck all summer long, racing at these racetracks, people drinking beer 1 foot from my face, accidentally spitting in my face. And all along, people been getting COVID, but they've been keeping it to themselves. And that was the moral to the story. I said, "You got to be kidding me. Y'all been getting COVID and y'all have not said anything because of this thing in the United States. We got this, political war going on between the Democrats and the Republicans. And unfortunately, I try to tell people, I say, look, this is worldwide. This is in Canada. This is in Europe. This isn't a United States thing." And I couldn't believe it. So they all kept telling me to keep making these videos. Please share your stories, because people are about dying and they're not saying anything about it. And so I kept making these videos every other day, and they become a hit because, I just was really honest. And that is the whole story of why I was doing the videos.
Yeah, I think when you announced it on YouTube, I think your statement was, "Me and Kim, we fucked up." Mm-hmm. You went south, you went on a cruise, you went to Florida,
yeah,
you went all those places thinking you're invincible, and you haven't had it yet. You're not going to get it.
Right, 100% correct. I'm glad you said it that way, because we did. We got on an airplane, we landed, we got to the hotel, we drank beer, no problem. But then we gathered in the lobby with like 200 people, getting on the buses, going to the cruise ship, and then, those cruise ships, I told my wife, I said, "Kim, let's skip this year. We don't need to go this year." Well, she wanted to go, so no big deal. Well, then it just got out of hand. Then it was we were in cabs. We were just everywhere in the airports, and we set ourselves up for catastrophic failure. And boy, we got it. We got that COVID, and I got it. I was lucky though, a day and a half, and I was okay. I was recovering. But Kim, she's still recovering. She got diabetes too, and she's a little overweight. Not everybody's perfect. That's the other thing. Not everybody's perfect, and nobody is. So, if you're not perfect, if you ain't skinny and you ain't taking vitamins, you ain't running and working out every day, it's hard to recover from COVID.
Yeah, and before I get to the next point here, Kim had a super fan checking on her every day. The guy's a little popular. Who was that? Good for him.
Well, I've always said I'm not going to tell everybody who called me, because it could create controversy. But it was Dale Earnhardt Jr. Dale Earnhardt Jr. called me up right away, and he said, "Herman," he says, "I love you guys." And I said, "I know you do." See, our relationship goes way back. That's another story. But anyway, so he says, you got to get Kim up walking. I said, "No, I didn't know that." He says, if she lays too long in that bed because of no energy, she'll get pneumonia in her lungs. I said, my God, Dale Jr., thank you so much for calling me and telling me. I had no idea. I just thought my wife was tired. Well, come to find out, he told me another story of another great race car driver. And then lo and behold, like I said, it's, my phone just started going nuts, for 5 straight days. And, my husband got pneumonia, because he laid in bed too long. He had no energy. See, the one thing about COVID is it zaps all your energy out of you. And so you want to lay down and you think you need to lay down, but it's the opposite is what Dale Jr. was trying to teach me, because I didn't know people were still getting COVID, in this type of situation. So thank God for Dale Jr. My wife would probably be in the hospital, longer than what she was.
Yeah, no, great point for sure. Listen, we've talked about the pandemic on here since we started the Driver and Deep podcast. I think I even told you, Kenny, we started it because of the damn pandemic, because we were bored as shit. The track was closed. But it's, we touched on it a little bit, but do you think that overall this pandemic's divided people more than ever? And it's hot. Listen, I know it's maybe not to the same extent down there, but it's the same thing here, man.
Yes. To answer your question, yes, it has divided everybody. But you'll be the first people I share this analogy with. Think of the globe, of global Earth. It's the globe, right? It's not a Canadian thing. It's not a United States thing. Coronavirus is global Earth. So I find that people go, oh, our government. I'm like, no. It's not our government. It's global Earth. Everybody's like, our government's trying to do. I'm like, no. It's in Australia. It's in Europe. It's in Canada. Quit acting like it's these couple people here. It's global Earth. And I think that's the biggest thing that I learned. Trudeau's not trying to do this, or Biden's not trying to do this. It's global Earth. It's a whole global Earth thing. And that really helped me understand it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I guess we're not, people are getting tired of really talking about this now. And we can't wait for this to go away. And hopefully 2022 is going to be a much better year for this. But to get back a little bit to racing, of course, everyone who follows racing knows about the Wallace family and
royalty.
Yeah, for sure. And for me, I'm proud to admit I'm a fairly new race fan. And luckily enough, because of Alex, I've had lots of access to the sport, and I'm loving so much of what I've been able to see so far. And the first time I was able to see you live was at Cayuga Motor Speedway, as Alex mentioned. And I know that your day didn't go as well on the track as you would have liked, but can you tell me about your experience visiting with us and your impression of the Speedway after not being there for so many years? I believe your first visit was in '86, which was one of your first ASA starts, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, correct. So I had been to Cayuga in the early '80s with my brother, Rusty Wallace, as a crew member, right? So then I finally became a race car driver, and my first time racing at Cayuga was 1986. It's such a great and wonderful experience. Here I am, 58 years old, and I can still remember us, leaving St. Louis, Missouri, down here in the Midwest of the United States, getting to, Detroit, Michigan, going across that Windsor Bridge and checking in, at the border there, all a little nervous, we're not doing nothing wrong, but look at this. It's intimidating. So, then we weave our way up through, past the tobacco fields up there. And then there out of nowhere is the Cayuga racetrack. Then years later, it closed. And then, we lost Kenny, my prayers to his family, but, he spent millions of dollars and created what we knew of as Jukasa. And, so when I came back and me and Alex met, I could not believe my eyeballs. This track was, it could have been a premier, facility. It's that beautiful. And I was shocked. I truly was shocked to see what a beautiful racetrack it was. And, you're right. My night did not go the way I wanted to, but I kind of put myself in those positions when I sign up to drive, other people's race cars. But still, we ran as hard as we could all night long. We didn't give up, and we were wore out after the race because we gave it our all, and I left everything on the racetrack that night. And it was a great experience for me. I got to meet a lot of people and a lot of fun there.
Yeah. Left it a little bit off the racetrack post-event, too. We had a couple pops with a bunch of fans, and people come up and met my staff. They appreciated that. So, yeah, no, it's a great time, man. Appreciate you coming. It was a highlight for me as a promoter. I got to see you race and different things, but as a promoter, to have somebody like yourself was awesome. Your racing career, Kenny, your path was no disrespect, but a little bit odd. Of course, your dad, Russ, raced, and your two brothers, people might have heard of them, Rusty and Michael Wallace. You worked on your dad's cars, your brother's cars, and I think you started in a street stock for a one-off in 1982. I think you might have even won that thing, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. And then, you go from racing your first time in 82 in a street stock. Next thing you know, Kenny Wallace, I sent Mark a picture of you on the front straightaway here, sitting beside your ASA car. Bam, 82 street stock, 86 ASA. Badass series. It was no joke, man. That ASA series was no joke. It was tough as hell. So, so many stars came through that series. How did it all happen?
Well, your timeline is 100% accurate. It was strange because I ran that one race in 1982 in Springfield, Illinois, on a big 1 mile dirt track. And you're right, there was 120 cars entered and I won. So I thought, well, I'm the next Mario Andretti or Richard Petty. Well, it was just an odd time in life. And at that time, I was a better mechanic and I was a better fabricator. My brother Rusty, my brother Mike, they did not want me to race. And, they got what they wanted. And it kind of sucked for me, but I didn't know any better. There was no money to be found. And we were trying to get Rusty's career going. And Mike was tearing up the short tracks right here. And that's why there was that big gap. 1982 to 1986. I mean, I'm the only race car driver in the damn world that started racing at 22 years old. And that's a fact. I mean, I started in ASA 1986. I was 22 years old. Hell, most people in their career, nowadays. So it was strange. It was very strange. I really stunted my growth by starting so late. But, that was my path. That was my journey. And, I was a NASCAR Cup crew chief in 1984. So between 82 and 1984, me and my girlfriend at that time, Kim, now my wife, we spent a year down in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I was the crew chief, on the Joe Ruttman Levi Garrett tobacco car. And, I post pictures all the time of me changing tires and making pit calls. And finally, come back here to 86 and started my racing career. So it was definitely a weird path. That's for sure.
You won the Driver of the Year award in the Xfinity Series, I believe, 3 times. Right. And Alex has talked a lot. We try to keep it real on our podcast, but one of the reasons why you were able to win the Driver of the Year award is because of how real you are as a person. You like to keep things real, and we try to do the same thing for our podcast. And watching you on Dale Jr.'s podcast, talking about the early days, how money was tight when you were growing up, and I believe you even referred to yourself as the Clampets coming down south with all your furniture, and that was so funny. I have to admit. But seriously, I couldn't imagine how hard it must have been to have 3 kids that wanted to go racing. Is it fair to say that being the oldest, your brother Rusty probably had the best chance with the family team as a result?
I would say that, you have your first kid, you have your second kid. By the time you get to the third and fourth, the parents are exhausted. So, it's not that Rusty wanted it any more than me, but by the time I come along, there was no more help.
He was first in line. He was first in line.
Mom and dad were like, oh my God, so that's true. Listen, I think the reason I won the most popular driver 3 times is because I'm the epitome of never giving up. It's very hard to win, and no matter what racetrack. And, it's like Dale Sr., his greatest thing he ever said to me before Dale Sr. died, Dale Earnhardt Sr., he said, Herman, he said, there are thousands of great race car drivers all over the United States, all over the world, and they all cannot be NASCAR. So I think I made a lot of people feel a little more comfortable in their own shoes. A lot of people always, why me? How come I didn't get it? Poor me. To where I said, look, here I am, the third child. My name's Kenny Wallace. I seek attention. I've lost way more than I've won. And people could relate with me, because when you look at motorsports or you look at athletes, let's take the greatest golfer, Tiger Woods. People cannot relate to him because he's got a God-given talent. People cannot relate to Kyle Larson, one of the greatest race car drivers we've ever seen, but they can relate to me. They can relate to Kenny Wallace because I represent the normal working class, and I'm gonna try this. I'm gonna try. I busted my ass. I didn't do good, and did I lose? Yes. Was I a loser? Hell no. I won a lot of big races, but I think that was my journey. I think it was planned that way. And I don't know what I could have changed. I mean, like you said, I didn't start racing until I was damn 22. So I got a late start.
Hey, we all have different paths, man. It is what it is, and you just make the most of it. So also listening to the podcast with Junior. So you're telling me that you weren't shut up the ass with a shotgun full of diamonds?
Diamonds, right. Yeah, well, what happens there is people, all they see is the final product, right? All they see is what's done. It's like, I compare it to baking a cake, right? They don't show, the stove going and the first crack of the egg and, the sugar and the butter. They don't see all that junky, messy part. They see the cake. Well, that's the way life is. So it is true that I had a very successful career once I got going, right? I'm on national TV, Fox TV. I'm making good money. I'm running competitively. And then everybody's like, the old saying is that Kenny Wallace has been shot in the ass with diamonds. He's so wealthy. I'm like, you dumb son of a bitch. Really? You didn't see me, making that cake. You didn't see me making it. I was very middle class. We had no money. And, my story is a successful story, but we started with nothing. And, none of us had any money. And it pains me. Dale Jr., Dale Sr., I can remember when they was redneck as all get out. I mean, they really were. And so it's sad that people, don't understand. They just right away just start in on you and start, motherfucking you, and it gets exhausting,
Yeah, I hear you. Listen, I know your parents were very instrumental in your racing career, along with Mike, but it's no secret. Rusty had a huge impact on your career. And if it wasn't, and I don't think it was always easy with him on you.
Right. Well, Rusty he is the best. And first of all, my brother Rusty, he's the oldest. Then my brother Mike's the middle one. I'm the youngest. So I truly love my brothers. There's been no sibling rivalry, no jealousy ever. There really just hasn't. I've always looked up to both of my brothers. They're extremely smart. And, Rusty's just damn good. And Rusty has always loved me. He's always been a little jealous that everybody loves me. And I tell him, I said, brother, I can't help that. but I'd also cut off one of my pinkies to done what he's done, Rusty Wallace, my brother, is one of the greatest NASCAR drivers of all time. But boy, he has done everything for me. And there's no doubt I would not be where I'm at, without my brother Rusty. I mean, he moved me and my girlfriend down to North Carolina, put us in a free single wide mobile home, gave us a car, got me going, started a race team for me. So, yes. And my brother Mike, he'll do anything for you. And it's just gone really good for me, with my family.
Well, Rusty could have got you a double wide. I mean, Jesus, man.
He ended up getting me one.
Nice.
Yes, it was, Rusty won the Oakwood Homes 500. Oakwood Home is a mobile home.
Right.
And he won the Oakwood 500 at Charlotte, North Carolina. Big race. And he created a relationship with them. So he got me in a single wide when I moved down. And I'm going to tell you what, that single wide was, right now to this day, I could go back and live in a mobile home. They're great. And so then we moved to a double wide. And then it was, I think I got to be maybe 34 years old, and I finally moved into a home. It was awesome.
Nice. Hey, you mentioned Mike. Speaking of your family, specifically Mike, you probably don't know this, but Mike had entered Matt, your nephew, Mike's son, into our Canadian Short Track Nationals here for 2020, right as the pandemic starts. Of course, he registered in January, February, before the pandemic hit, like many, many others. And of course, it was canceled again. He said, all those guys just keep the money for 2021. Of course, 2021 cancels. Mike called me, and I sent a note out to everybody. Listen, we're going to refund everybody's entry fees. Let's clear the slate here. Who knows where this is going to go, blah, blah, blah. Mike calls me, and he says, Alex, keep the money. He said, you guys with racetracks have suffered enough through all this crap. Please keep the money. And I begged him. I said, no, Mike, it's not about keeping the money. I want to give, he goes, well, I'm not, and I needed to get his credit card number back to refund him. He said, well, you're screwed because I'm not giving you my credit card number. So keep the money. You know what?
Excellent.
I know you're going racing with him here soon. Please tell him again for me. Thank you very much.
I will.
It's not about the money, but man, he's a stand-up guy, and I appreciate that. And he's, it was big. It was nice of him.
I love my brother Mike, and I can tell you that when you race like we have our whole life, and then you end up racing for a living, you know what it's like to put everything on the line. What you all did up there was a glorious, beautiful thing, and it was the talk of Canada and the States. And unfortunately, pretty cool of my brother Mike. I'm proud of him. I never heard that story. That's cool.
Well, Bubba Pollard got to come up here twice and take our dough.
He's good. And,
yes.
That's all there is to it. He's good.
I agree.
Kenny, you were crew chief in NASCAR before your driving career started. And then you, as we talked about, did the ASA thing. But how did you end up getting your start in NASCAR as a driver?
Well, it was quite the journey. Win the race in 82, go down, win that dirt race, that one dirt race on a big mile dirt track. Then I'm in Jefferson, Georgia, and a guy named Joe Ruttman, a great race car driver, asked me to come down and be the car chief. So me and my girlfriend, we moved down to North Carolina. I ended up being the crew chief because they fired Jake Elder. And then we moved back to St. Louis at the end of first end of 84. My dad wanted me to come back, offered me $20,000 a year. And I just came back home because the experience didn't turn out real well. And then it was my brother Rusty's original car owner named John Childs. John said, hey, you want to be a race car driver? And I was like, well, Lord, yes. So John helped me financially. Of course, I borrowed some money for the truck to make a truck. Then my wife bought my Dillon trailer. It was like this big puzzle. Everything came together. So I raced on my own. I had no idea how I did it because I didn't have any money. I was working for my Uncle Gary at a janitorial business. And I did that in ASA 1986, 87, 88. November of 88, my brother Rusty, he had watched me race for 3 years on my own. And it was the great Dick Trickle that would report into Rusty. Rusty Wallace, my brother, would call Dick Trickle up and he'd go, how my little brother doing? And they said, well, he finally quit running into everything. He's doing good. Kenny won Rookie of the Year. I won Rookie of the Year in 86 over Gary St. Amant. And, we were doing good. And my brother Rusty, this is why I say I owe my brother Rusty everything, because November 88, I got the greatest phone call of all time. My brother Rusty calls me. He goes, you want to move back down south? That's what everybody calls it. You don't go NASCAR, you go south. Hey, Herman, you want to come back down south? And I'm going to build you a Busch Grand National team. I'm like, what? So sure enough, we got Cox Treated Lumber, a big lumber company that treated lumber out of Orangeburg, South Carolina. And that's the short of the story. We was off and rolling.
Yeah, and just to expand on that a little bit, Kenny, because I love this part. Great on Rusty for giving you that break for sure. But if there's one car specifically that you got a chance to drive prior to going racing with Rusty's team because you're trying to get approved. And I worked for NASCAR here in Canada for 4 or 5 years, so I know how that all works now. And but whose car did you get a chance to drive? How did that happen? And the coolest part to me, man, is where you went to go get fitted with the seat and stuff.
Yeah, so well, you do know a lot about me. So you cannot be a NASCAR driver and go to Daytona specifically if NASCAR does not approve you. So in other words, if you show up to Daytona Speedway and you're going to run over 200 mile an hour, you just can't do that. NASCAR has got to approve you so you don't kill yourself. So NASCAR's like, okay, send us, we know who you are, Kenny, but send us what you've been doing since you left and you became a race car driver. So my girlfriend, Kim, my mom, we put this book together and we sent this book to Les Richter that, look, I've run Milwaukee in my ASA car. You know, I ran Michigan Speedway, I ran Winchester, Salem, but now they want to see me. NASCAR wants to see me in a Busch Grand National car.
Hey, did you tell them about the street stock race?
That might have been in there on a 1 mile dirt track. Lo and behold, my brother Rusty and Dale Earnhardt Sr. put a deal together, and I end up driving the number 8 GM Goodrich Chevrolet. I'm driving Dale Earnhardt Sr.'s car at Martinsville. I end up, I think, running 12th. But what was great is, yes, I went to Kannapolis, North Carolina, to his dad's shop. You know, his dad was gone. His mom, Martha, still living. V8 Road, flew down there, took my seat with me and took my seat out of my ASA car, and I put it in Dale Earnhardt Sr.'s race car. And then we went to Martinsville, and we tested a little bit. And then all of a sudden, it was funny. You had Dale Earnhardt Sr. and my brother, Rusty Wallace, on the radio. You had Sr. saying, "Go, Herman, go, go." And you had Rusty saying, "No, easy, easy." So
Rusty's paying the bills.
Yeah.
Earnhardt's collecting.
Yeah, don't wreck that car, man. Earnhardt gonna make me pay for what you wreck, you know. So it was we had to change the motor because we had an oil leak. Earnhardt and Rusty were both up in the motor compartment changing that motor. It was awesome.
So you go to the shop in Kannapolis, which was Ralph Earnhardt's shop, right? Ultimately.
His real shop. Yep.
Must have been a time.
Yeah, that's what I said on that Dale Jr. podcast. I said, you looked up and all these old banisters. And Ralph, which was Dale Earnhardt's dad, he would take and pound nails so he could hang things on. So all these antique items, you know, in the day, you used them. But when his dad died, Senior, you know, Dale Earnhardt Sr., he didn't move anything.
Right.
He left it all alone. So the floor was all kind of up to date, but everything around the shop, Dale Earnhardt Sr. did not allow the crew to touch anything. So you were in the shop, but it was like a time warp. You're looking up and all his dad's stuff was hanging on these nails everywhere. It was a hell of an experience for me to see.
You went on to have a long, successful career in NASCAR, and then you retired in 2015 and went to work for Fox, doing TV, which was also very successful. For both careers, was it just time to retire? How did you know, or were there other circumstances involved?
Man, I'll tell you what, it was a load of circumstances. But I'll tell you when it really happened. I mean, I'll tell you the exact moment. A lot of people don't know, but I remember my exact moment. Like most things, I was in the shower and I was shampooing my hair. And I had spent the last 5-8 years of my career having to gather up $5 and $6 million a year. And that was a lot of pressure. But what I had forgot was that me and my wife, we had saved all our money. I had money. I did. But I always felt like I was poor. I always felt like I was broke because what I wanted to do, what I loved so much racing, I had to bring money because the car owners at that time, they quit. They had the shop, they had the equipment. And at that time, you brought the money And then and that's the way, pretty much the way it is nowadays.
Yeah.
That started about 25 years ago, 30 years ago. So I said, you know what? And I think I was 51 years old. And I said, I'm done. And I'll never forget, I got out of that bathroom, and our daughter Brooke was living in St. Louis, but she happened to be there. And I said, gather the family up. And one of my daughters said, are we in trouble, Dad? I said, no. And they were all of age. They're already up in the teens, and, driving cars and out of school. And I said, all right, everybody's here. I said, I'm quitting NASCAR. I'm retired. My daughter Brandy said, Dad, that's great. And my wife said, and my wife said, hold on here. So look at this. One of my grandbabies come in here, and this is Jade.
Hi, Jade.
Say
hi,
hi,
Jade.
everybody. Hi. All right, Poppy, gonna finish his interview, okay? I love you. Hey, do you go watch me race? Yeah. Tell him, say, you watch Poppy race? Do you like watching me race? Yeah. Yes.
Thanks, Jade.
So anyway, I just, I had decided that I was tired of everything that it took. And I was 51 years old. And then there was another moment. I was at Phoenix, and I was getting ready to qualify the the Xfinity car. And I looked at the lineup. I went from 1 all the way down, and I was the last one left. It was only me. All my part, Jeff Burton, Bobby Labonte, Michael Waltrip, they were all gone. Yeah. I was literally the last of the Mohicans. So everybody that I grew up racing with in NASCAR, they were done. They were already gone. If you remember Jeff Burton and Bobby Labonte, they just kind of faded off. They didn't even announce their time. And then I was just tired of getting that sponsorship money. And so I just decided to go full-time dirt racing and work for Fox. And Fox extended my career. Fox TV, they made that whole other career for me.
This all kind of makes sense to me now, Alex. Kenny, you said you were in the shower washing your hair when you were 51 years old when you had this epiphany.
Yes.
So now I understand, Alex, why you retired so much earlier.
Why?
Well, there's nothing to shampoo.
Well, I always tell everybody, I spent like $19,000. I was bald right here, and I literally, went to Bosley, and I had this hair transplant. They moved my hair from the back up here. It's all real, but
from the back, like from your neck or from your ass?
Yeah. Well, yeah, literally from the. Well, it's funny because they call it donor hair. You have to have hair in the back. Actually, I was watching MASH the other night, a replay, and there's an actor, and I looked at him, and I'm jaded now, right? So I see things that I normally wouldn't see. And I told my wife, I said, that guy could have had a hair transplant because he dead bald here, but he got all this hair in the back, So, yeah.
Hey, you know what I tell Mark and everybody else, Kenny? Grass don't grow in a busy street, man.
You know what? The great Dick Trickle, Dick Trickle, Trickle, he's a Polish. So we're partying one night, and Dick always liked letting his shirt unbutton down to usually Dick really let it, unbutton here. I looked at him, and we were in an elevator in Indianapolis, and I said, Trickle, you don't have any hair on your chest. He looked at me and he said, my boy, hair doesn't grow on steel. Best one-liner ever.
Oh man, I got a Dick Trickle story from here at Cayuga, partying with him in the campground. I got to tell it quick because Dick, he'd party all night, wash his face and go racing the next day. And we're out in the campground partying all night. And next day, Dick just walks into the pit area, gets ready to rock, as you know. Don't even know he never slept. Don't even know he drank a beer. And he starts racing, and all the rivets on the ASA cars, then the doors were riveted on at the front, of course, and he got nicked and he come loose. Well, the door starts flapping at the front. There's Dick. I'll never forget him. I'm in the infield, and there he is, got his left arm out around the window net, holding that door skin on for 300 laps, just wheeling her, just because he wasn't going to get black flagged. And
he was amazing.
Crazy. What a guy, man. I love that guy. Anyways, so now you're doing your dirt car thing, Kenny, as everybody knows. And and anything else that comes your way, you're always willing to drive something. And I know you do it still because you love to win. You're competitive. You make a bit of money. And but after seeing you with our fans live at Jacasa, I knew the big reason was that you love the sport, you want to give back, and the fans are what it's all about for you. Am I wrong?
No, you're right. I mean, hey, listen, it's pretty simple. You have the totality of the word life, L-I-F-E. What is life? The word retire is really not in my vocabulary. The word content is not in my vocabulary. I never really kicked my life into neutral. In other words, it is true that if you get lazy, you get lazy. But I do like to slow down. I enjoy getting a massage. I like a good smelling candle. I like to relax, so, there's no such thing as, sitting on your couch and watching TV the rest of your life. That is so artificially, that ain't right. That's horrible. So, I'm racing my dirt car. However, this is my last year, 2022 will be my last year racing all over, the world. So this year, I'm not going to grind as hard. I'm not going to run 82 races this year. I'm 58. So, in August, we're going to be, touching 59. So we're going to run about 50, 60 races. It's easy to do the type of racing I do. We'll go to Volusia here in February. We'll run 6 straight nights. So boom, there's 6 races. You can easily run that many in dirt racing. Then at the end of 2022, I am going to sell my big truck, my big trailer. And I got a nice little 28-foot trailer. And I'm going to hook that up to my daily driver. Going to get that insurance cheaper. We're going to start right sizing. And then in 2023, I will only race right here at home. I'll be racing every Saturday night at Kenny Schrader's I-55 Raceway. Then I'll be racing across the river here about 35 minutes away at Tri-City Speedway, Granite City, Illinois. So we're weaning myself off. But I just, it's getting to where, I drive the truck and trailer. I work on the race car myself. I got one employee, but, it's not like he's a big time employee. And I'm getting to where I got to simmer down, as they would say, just slow down a little bit.
Alex and I certainly understand that. We've, recently decided to take up a new sport because, we're getting to the point where we obviously can't compete at the highest level of the things we used to do before, and which is disc golf. I'm not sure if you've heard about how big disc golf is getting now.
I just saw it.
Yeah,
cool.
it's a great sport, and just a little suggestion for you. But I do have another suggestion. When the time comes for you to hang them up and you still feel like you have to get out there and do something, I highly recommend you contact the St. Louis Blues, because I watched you get a couple of assists in the game, the outdoor game yesterday. And man, I'll tell you got some stick handling skills there.
That was actually Colton Parayko. He's from the other side of Canada, all the way over by Calgary, and he came and watched us race. And Colton Parayko, with our St. Louis Blues, he became a friend of mine. His dad loves NASCAR. So I had them down to Daytona, but Colton gave me that stick. And so last night with the Winter Classic, it was funny because Cairo, was off the boards, put it in front of the net, and Tarasenko scored as I was acting silly. And I was like, oh my God, this timing's funny. And so yeah, it was really just a load of fun. It was a lazy Saturday, evening here. And we had fun with that.
Yeah. St. Louis had a pretty good run, man, for sure.
Yeah, we did. It's been fun. I mean, we're not one of the original 4. We always feel like we're the stepchild. It's true. The St. Louis Blues organization, we do have a chip on our shoulder, but slowly, surely, but, you guys are the real deal. Y'all invented hockey. It's your game. But, it's kind of funny, too, because in Major League Baseball, you got some teams over in Canada. So it is really cool that we're able to join both sports,
yeah,
and include them into, whether it's, the World Series in baseball, or the Stanley Cup, whether it be hockey. I've always found it fascinating that we're able to marry both countries together.
Yeah.
and they're considered, the winner overall.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. I mean, we produce a lot of hockey players, but now you guys are. And now we're starting to produce a bunch of basketball players and baseball players. So like you say, even the NBA has kind of crossed over too. So that's pretty cool. Before we're moving along here, but I want to ask you this, and I don't want to spend a ton of time on it because we could talk about it for 3 days, but we all know NASCAR led the way forever. Whether it's racers, track operators, we all looked to NASCAR for some guidance and see what they were doing. We tried to replicate it. I understand the sport's cyclical and we all get knocked down once in a while, but it's all about getting back up. Was there something that NASCAR did or didn't do for it to decline like it did for a little while? In asking this question, I have no disrespect. I've been a fan of NASCAR. I worked for NASCAR, know a bunch of those people, learned a ton. Great people. I'm not trying to beat anybody up. This could talk about any series, but is there something that they did in particular that caused that decline in your opinion? I know you've talked about it before, so it's not putting you on a spot.
Yeah, and I tell the NASCAR executives this, and you'll find it fascinating that when you talk to NASCAR, all the executives, it's kind of funny because there's really, I guess, the one grand poobah is Jim France. Yeah. Jim is the one. Jim France, he's the one. I mean, that's as big as it gets. And then underneath him, is Lessa Kennedy France. She lost her husband.
Yeah.
And Brian, who is no longer really active in NASCAR, but all these people that work at NASCAR, they're an executive, but they're not, they're kind of bopping and weaving. And I told them, and they've agreed, the number one thing we did wrong was not necessarily NASCAR. It was the racetracks themselves. Now, NASCAR does own a lot of them, but specifically some of these SMI tracks, they were telling the fans, your dirt track fans, $100 bill is a big thing. And they said, okay, if you're going to come to Texas Motor Speedway, you got to buy a ticket for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. You can't just buy Sunday's ticket. They started segregating themselves. They made it to where the local dirt racing fan, local asphalt fan, they priced them right out. And, that's what happened. That was the number one downfall. And then they got rid of all these tracks. They got rid of Rockingham. They got rid of Wilkesboro. And they'll tell you why they got rid of them. They got rid of them because 60,000 people were not enough. I remember the day where they said, oh, man, Rockingham only holds 60,000 people. And I'm thinking, what's wrong with that? I mean, every professional sporting venue right now to this day. I mean, the Winter Classic last night was unbelievable crowd, 34,000 people, So NASCAR started getting fascinated with 350,000 people at the Brickyard. So they shut all those small tracks down, all for those bigger tracks. And then the races become very boring. The tracks were so big. So 2 bad moves.
I have to say that speaking of stadiums, watching the game last night, it was minus 22 Celsius out there. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit for the Americans.
About -8, -6, -8.
Wow.
It was cold.
And I watched the St. Louis Blues get off their bus wearing shorts and T-shirts, and someone wasn't even wearing a shirt. I'm not sure if that was Ryan O'Reilly or not, but after the game, they interviewed Ryan O'Reilly and they asked him about the cold weather, and he's just like, whatever. Like where he's Canadian, right? So,
well, you took the words right out of my mouth. I said, what they failed to forget is all of our players are from Russia and Canada. We'd be lucky to have one American on our team. So, that's not, that was not far-fetched, and they did it to have fun. Our St. Louis Cardinals kind of do the same thing. If they win on the road, it's called Happy Flight. So when that all started, there's a story behind that too. When our Rams, our football team, when they got kicked out of St. Louis, it was a brutal blow to our city. So the St. Louis Cardinals and the St. Louis Blues decided to become one. They married both franchises because our town was very splintered. and now we got a really big soccer stadium. So when the Rams left, and you'll never, I mean, I don't think you'll ever see the NFL in St. Louis again. That's the second team we lost. We're a small town. We don't got enough money. And, but it's a good sports town, though. It's kind of like Green Bay, right? There's nothing in Green Bay except Green Bay, the Packers. That's all there is. So it's kind of like St. Louis. We got good sports teams, but we just couldn't keep that NFL team. So both teams became tight. And they started doing fun stuff like that. They're like, hey, the St. Louis Blues were wanting to make Minnesota feel good. They're like, this don't bother us. Let's play. That was the message. Let's play.
Getting back to what Alex mentioned and talking about the struggles that NASCAR had, I did want to bring up one more point. Do you think part of the struggles they had, or because so many heroes of the sport were gone at that time, like your brother Rusty, Jeff Gordon, Carl Edwards, and even Matt Kenseth, they all retired. Plus, of course, we lost the biggest icon of the sport when Senior died.
Yes, all above. So when, Alex asked me one thing. So I told him one thing, and then I added another one in there. But there's no doubt that it was the perfect storm, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
It was the perfect storm so I know this for a fact. The highest elevation NASCAR ever was 2006. And it was because everybody's waiting to see if Dale Earnhardt Jr. was going to be like his dad.
Right.
And Junior, extremely famous, but there was nobody like Senior. He was a cowboy, man. He was something. Dale Earnhardt Sr. was every man's man. Every man wanted to be Dale Earnhardt Sr. So when we lost him, that was a brutal blow. But listen, the demise of NASCAR has been well recorded. And if there was ever a book to be wrote, or not even a book, just an 8 by 10 sheet of paper, tell me 10 things, it's everything we just said here. We said 3 things, Number 1, they priced themselves out. Number 2, all the race car drivers left. There's just so much to say, but I think you could say 10 things.
Yep.
And then a big societal shift too. The world changed. Yeah.
For sure. Absolutely. And that's nobody's fault. It's just, trying to keep up with those changes and deliver your product differently. But listen, Steve Phelps, man, he's done a nice job. Him and his team, they're doing some great things, got things turned around. And, going back to some of the places we talked about that aren't happening anymore, maybe forgot about our roots a little bit, if that's another thing we're going to add to the list. But, now we got guys like Elliott, Blaney, Larson, and all these young guys coming up that are becoming superstars. And I think, like it was a perfect storm when it went downhill, losing those icons, I think we've got some new ones coming at the same time the sport's getting propped back up. So I think it's a great time.
So you're right. And we've got to quit talking about back then, because if you look at the old stadiums, whether it be, National Hockey League arenas or stadiums with Major League Baseball, look, Busch Stadium used to seat 50,000 people. Now we're sold out at 40, and that's standing room only. So everything has went smaller. Now smaller is better. So when a track is now sold out, like Phoenix, when a track is sold out at 60,000, we got to remember that's good. Yeah. The glory days, I don't know if we'll ever see that again, but the days are gone. All the seats are gone. They tore them down. So you can't put more than 60,000 in anyway. And you can't put more than 100,000 in Daytona Speedway because that's all the seats there are. So them days are over. These are the new days.
Move on.
All right. So what we'd like to do is we're going to do our rapid fire segment where we're going to ask you some quick questions and you just give us the fastest answer that comes to your head.
Got it.
Okay. Alex is going to start off.
Your favorite thing to do outside of racing?
Spend time with my family. I'm enjoying my grandbabies. They're fun. They make me laugh. And, really, me and my wife get along really good. Just, good movie and hanging out.
If you could change one thing in our sport, what would it be?
Calm the bitching and moaning down.
Amen. Technology and racing, good or bad?
It's good and bad. It really is. I mean, it's pretty simple to me. It's good and bad because, we want to see some of the human element. We say, hey, have a computer tell us balls and strikes in baseball, but you still got to have the ump. So it's good and bad.
Control it.
Best driver you ever raced against?
Oh man. I mean, that's pretty simple for me. Me in my era, the great Dale Earnhardt Sr., he controlled the car. The car did not control him. And that's a very rare thing to say.
Speaking of Earnhardt's, is Dale Jr. underrated as a driver?
I think by some people. I've raced him. He's got a lot of talent. Very, very talented. Great car control. He can drive a car loose. I think a lot of people rough him up just because, he's an Earnhardt, and I always tell people you can't put him back.
Right. He's not senior.
He's an Earnhardt. Yes. Yeah. He is underrated. Yes.
Is there anyone that you haven't raced against that you wish you had?
Oh, I think we all would like to. I'd love to race against A.J. Foyt and Mario Andretti. That'd be awesome.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Some names for you. Junior Hanley.
Legend, smart, innovator, great fabricator, great race car driver. Canadian's best race car driver of all time, in my opinion.
Wow. Dick Trickle.
The greatest of all time. Also a very good philosopher. If it weren't for Dick Trickle, I wouldn't be where I'm at in my head. I'd be weaker. Trickle made me stronger, taught me a lot of life lessons. My man, I miss him a lot.
This is big for you, I know. Kenny Schrader.
My other brother. Kenny,
fourth Wallace.
Yes, the fourth Wallace. Kenny is the one that kind of, took me under his wing, taught me all about dirt racing, taught me a lot of life lessons. Gives me a lot of tough love, tells me things I don't want to hear. But, I can't bestow a bigger honor on anybody than saying, he's my other brother.
We have quite a number of young up-and-coming racers that listen to Driver in Deep. What one piece of advice could you give those up-and-comers?
I would say get your own head into your race car. Don't depend on your dad, your crew, to make all your decisions. You want to be part of that team. You want to be part of the decision because, if you don't have a God-given talent like Kyle Larson or Dale Earnhardt Sr., there's only one way that you can just drive the race car, and you better be a God's gift. But if you're not a God's gift, my piece of advice to you is get your head in the race car and, stay humble. Promote yourself because it takes sponsorship to run these race cars. Don't moan, don't pout, don't why me. Keep your head down and keep digging.
I agree. Create a brand for yourself, right?
You got it. I mean, you have to sell yourself because if we don't have sponsorship, then we don't race.
Okay, next one, family.
Everything. It's all there is. If you don't have family, you don't have anything. You can't live. You don't want to live by yourself. I mean, I don't. I love my family. I got my 4 grandbabies lined up right now looking at me.
We got 2 more quick ones. St. Louis Blues or St. Louis Cardinals?
Cardinals, just because I grew up, a baseball guy. I could play it. I love hockey. I love my Blues. But let's face it, you got to have a rink. You got to buy the skates. And, it's hockey's an expensive sport for all these young kids. Everybody will tell you. $100 bill won't even get you a set of skates. So,
no.
Baseball's a really cheap sport. You can do it in your backyard.
I think I know the answer to this one. The last one, regrets.
Oh, I mean.
In racing.
None. I mean,
nice.
maybe one little bitty one, but
like maybe a cup win?
Regrets. I mean, I don't regret anything. I wish I could have won a cup race. Yes.
Fair answer. Listen, we know you got to get out of here, buddy.
Yeah, it's been our absolute pleasure having you on Driver in Deep, Kenny. And again, to follow Kenny Wallace online, visit KennyWallaceRaces.com on his website, on Twitter. at Kenny_Wallace. And if you want to get a personal shout out from Kenny, check him out on his Cameo page at Kenny Wallace 36. And don't forget to check out his new YouTube page. Just search for Kenny Wallace.
Thank you, guys.
Best of luck in 2022, Kenny. Talk soon, brother. Say hi to Mike for me and Russ and Schrader. Say hi to Schrader.
Yes.
And hopefully we'll get you back on sometime, man.
All right. I miss you, Canada. See y'all soon.
Well, we're wide open sideways.
All right, you're clear.
Talk is cheap.
You're clear on that.
Got the foot to the floor. We're gonna drive her in deep.